I'm telling you, we have an amazing pastor, and I love him with all my heart. If you guys would tonight, if you would turn to Joshua chapter number 6. I know you guys have heard this story your whole life. You're probably sick of this story, but I'm just amazed at this story. It's the story of Jericho. And it amazes me because of God's true faithfulness to His people. Things that He promised them years in the past, He was beginning to bring to them. I mean, they went through all this time in Egypt, and God had told them, said, you know, I'm going to bring you out to a land flowing with milk and honey, and I'm going to take you to this wonderful place. For 40 years and nights, they struggled, walked through a desert and walked around in circles. So I know for a while, that's got to drive you nuts a little bit. You know, God calls you into doing something, and here you are walking around in circles. But anyway, we're going to start at verse number 1. I'm going to read quite a bit of scripture tonight because I'm telling you, I absolutely love this story tonight. But starting verse number 1 says, Now Jericho was shut up inside and outside because of the people of Israel. None went out and none came in. And the Lord said to Joshua, See, I have given Jericho into your hand, with its king and mighty men of valor. You shall march around the city, and all the men of war going around the city once. Thus shall you do for 6 days. 7 priests shall bear 7 trumpets of ram horns before the ark. And on the 7th day you shall march around the city 7 times, and the priests shall blow the trumpets. And when they make a long blast with a ram's horn, when you hear the sound of the trumpet, then all the people shall shout with a great shout, and the wall of the city will fall down flat. And the people shall go up, everyone straight before him. So Joshua, the son of Nun, called the priests and said to them, Take up the ark of the covenant, and let the 7 priests bear 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark of the Lord. And he said to the people, Go forward, march around the city, and let the armed men pass before the ark of God. And just as Joshua commanded the people, the 7 priests bearing the 7 trumpets of ram's horns, that's hard to say really fast. There's 7 priests bearing 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the Lord went forth, blowing the trumpets with the ark of the covenant, the Lord following them. The armed men were walking before the priest who were blowing the trumpets, and the rear guard was walking after the ark, while the trumpets blew continually. But Joshua commanded the people, You shall not make a sound with your voice, nor shall be heard neither shall any word, I'm getting my tongue tangled around here. Neither shall any word go out of your mouth until the day I tell you to shout, and then you shall shout. So he caused the ark of the Lord to circle the city, going about it once, and they came into the camp and spent the night in the camp. Then Joshua rose up early in the morning, the priests took the ark of the Lord, and the 7 priests bearing the 7 trumpets of ram horns before the Lord, the Lord walked on, and they blew the trumpets continually. And the armed men walked before them, the rear guard who was walking after the ark of the Lord, while the trumpets blew continually. And at the 2nd day they marched around the city once and returned to the camp. So they did this for 6 days. And on the 7th day they rose early on the dawn of the day and marched around the city in the same manner 7 times. And it was only on that day that they marched around the city 7 times. And on the 7th time, when the priest had blown the trumpets, Joshua said to his people, Shout, for God has given you the city. And the city that is all within it shall be devoted to the Lord for destruction. And skipping down, so the people shouted, and the trumpets were blown. As soon as the people heard the sound of the trumpet, the people shouted with a great shout, and the wall fell down flat. So the people went up into the city, every man straight before him, and they captured the city. I'm telling you, this story, if it doesn't get you stirred up, I don't know what will. But there's just a few things that I want to bring out in this. And I know none of my students are even in here tonight, but we got one back here. You guys know I usually don't preach very long. I'm a very short-winded guy. I try to get my point done and over, but tonight God actually gave me points to pull out on these things, which I'm usually not doing, so if you guys bear with me. But the point number 1 that I want to bring out is they were a people with a God-called vision. You see, they weren't just walking around aimlessly. They had a vision from God. God told them, I will give you a land flowing with milk and honey. To me, that sounds a little sticky. But that's what they wanted. That's what they were getting. I mean, I like milk and honey, but milk and honey together just doesn't sound that great to me. I don't know. But you see, they had some place to go. You see, some of you, God has called you to do His work. And you've sat there and you've tried to do His work before, but you just seem like you can't seem to figure out how to go on about it. See, God calls you to do something more than just be pew warmers. I mean, I say this to our students in the back, but God never calls anyone just to sit on a pew. God calls you with a purpose. He calls you with a plan, with things for you to do in your life. He doesn't call anybody to do nothing. I mean, if I read the Bible correct, it says, go ye into all the nations preaching the gospel. I mean, it's not what you guys was just doing in Africa. You're going over there and preaching the gospel. And here we are, we want to come in and we want to sit on our pews and we want to complain that we're not really fond of the carpet and the color of the walls are too dark and you know, all these other things. But yet, like Sister Cindy said, we're not even committed enough to show up to a board meeting or to an annual business meeting to vote on it. I think we've lost our vision of what God's called us to do. See, God gave you dreams and visions a long time ago, and you were running after that vision when you come up on a wall. I mean, God called you into things, and you begin to go after them with all your heart. God called you into youth ministry, and you begin to start going, and Lord, I will seek after you. I will do whatever you want to, and then you walk into a wall, and you begin to back up. You think, well, maybe that wasn't God. Maybe He didn't call me to do this. You say to yourself, I can't do this, I'm unqualified. The last time I did anything for God, I was hurt. I mean, how many times do we go out and we try to do things for God and other people try to just start tearing us down instantly? My grandma used to tell me this all the time. If the devil's not attacking you, you're not doing anything. She said when the devil starts attacking you the most, you need to start rejoicing because God's fixed to do something in your life. And I hear this time and time again of new Christians that says, you know, I'm trying to get my life right, I'm trying to do things right, but yet every time I do, Satan starts hitting me with all these things and starts tearing me back down. So you've allowed the enemy to enter your mind, and you've let him to continue living there rent-free. You let him get inside your head and tell you things that you know isn't right. You allow him to let you do just those few little things that you never would have done before. You find yourself watching just a few of those TV shows that you never would have watched before. You find yourself watching just, that's not really all that bad, so I'll watch this movie just this one time. You begin to allow yourself to get into a place that you never needed, that you never should have been. Here you are, you're supposed to be on a mission for God. God's called you to do a mission, and here you are allowing junk to enter your life and enter your head. You've allowed him to live there rent-free. You've allowed him to tell you that you're not good enough, that you've done too much in the past to be used by God. I'm telling you, when God calls you to do something, He never removes your callings. Sometimes you do things in life that allows you not to be able to do exactly what you feel like God was called you to do, but He still calls you. He may tweak that a little bit to be able to make it to your circumstance, to the things that you need. But God will never take His calling away from you until it's fulfilled. You know, David was anointed to be king long before he ever took over. God told you to do a lot of things and you've been waiting. But see, the point number 2 I have tonight is they had to do it God's way. You know, a lot of times God calls us to do things and we're trying to do them with the best that we can do, but yet we're trying to do them our way. I mean, how many of you guys has ever had a stumbling block in your life, an addiction to something, and you keep saying, no, I would rather not go tell anybody about this. I'll just deal with it in my own self. How many of you have ever overcome something like that by yourself? Anybody? Because I can't. I've never been able to. It takes God and doing it His way. Now, God had them march around the wall, 6 days, and then on the 7th day march around it 7 times. I mean, that's just, if you were a man of war, who would have thought of that idea? I mean, you think about this. What kind of, would General Patton have gone down and say, guys, what I want you to do, get the tanks, drive around them 7 times. Just 7 times. I mean, who thinks of these things? But yet God understood what He was doing at the time. You cannot overcome sin without God. You cannot overcome things without doing things His way. You cannot do the work of God on your own. You have to do it His way. I mean, do you really think that you can do things better than God? I mean, you think about that. This is the God of the whole universe. The one that created the whole heavens and the earth. He saw the beginning of time and sees the end of time all at one glance. And we think, I know how to do this better than He does. How arrogant have we become? We think that we can do this our own way. You see, we don't come out and say it, but what you're actually saying when you're doing that is, I'm smarter than God. That I can do things better than God can do. See, the last thing that I have is they had to shout. You see, some of us along the way, we've lost our shout. And maybe it's because we've circled the walls for so long that we don't believe God will do what He said He would do. We begin to believe the lies of the enemy. Yeah, we remember when God led us out of Egypt. We remember when we come to the Red Sea and He parted the Red Sea and we walked across. We remember when we were out here hungry and He brought bread from birds from above, and we were thirsty and He brought water out of a rock. But God can't do this. We'll begin to start doubting that God can do in you what He's called you to do. We've given up our shout. We've given up on the things that God has given us. Instead, we've just sat back and we've relaxed and become complacent in what we're doing. I mean, do you ever think that God maybe leads you into those places for a reason? I mean, God had the whole earth that He could have led the Israelites out. Instead, He brings them to a place where He's got a mountain on the left, a mountain on the right, a sea in front of them, and an army behind them. You talk about a rock and a hard place. That's where they were at. They were right there in between the rock and the hard place. And you know, if you really read into the story, God hardened the hearts of the Egyptians to make them come after Him. God's the one that sent them after Him. Because God wanted them to be in a place to show them, when you have no other hope, I am your hope. When you have no other way, I am your way. If you will begin to do things my way, I will bring you through. I don't know about you, but I love that. I love that about my God. It's just amazing to me. I mean, do you think it's coincidence that they were sitting there in front of a Red Sea? God just showed them how to trust in Him. How to not trust in their own finances and not in their own abilities, not in their own strengths, but by God's. My iPad is not cooperating with me now. It's the wonderful thing. Don't you love technology? I'm sure the story also cracks me up when I start thinking about the people sitting inside the walls of Jericho. Because by this time they had heard all the things that God had done for them. I mean, they were scared to death of these people. You think about this. They shut up their walls and was not coming in or out. They were absolutely terrified of these people. So they closed their walls up where they couldn't get in. And I'm sure on that first day when they begin to start walking around the walls, these people begin to start getting worried, thinking, oh man, they're coming. Look at these people. They're walking around. They're not saying nothing. They're just going around and around the city. Something's fixing to happen. But then they didn't say anything, and they turned around and walked off and went back to their camp. They was thinking, that's kind of odd. So the second day, here they come. The Israelites come marching in. They start marching around the walls of Jericho again, still got the trumpets blasting. But they're not saying a word, walking around there thinking, this is just weird. What are these people doing? I mean, you think about how odd would that be? Here you are sitting inside of a city, and you know that this group that's coming that has the favor of God on them, He's done all these miracles, and all they're doing is just walking around in circles. I mean, by the third and the fourth and the fifth day, I imagine these people begin to start getting relaxed, saying, well, this is just stupid. All they're going to do is sit here and march around us. We got nothing to worry about. And then I began to think about this. You know, maybe God didn't know a little bit of what He was doing. Because don't you think by the seventh day these people were getting a little relaxed? Thinking, nothing's going to happen. They've been marching around for 6 days. Nothing's happened. So why should we get alarmed? Why should we be worried? All they're doing is circling around the city blowing some horns. It's kind of pretty. I like the sound they're blowing. They're playing my favorite song, When the Saints Go Marching In. Sorry. ADD. Used to preaching to young people there. They understand my humor. But you know, the second and the third and the fourth and the fifth and the sixth days, they begin to start getting relaxed. You see, and they begin to look down at these Israelites and they think, man, these people used to be soul winners. These people used to be on fire. These people used to give to missions. They used to be mighty men of God, but look at them now. All they're doing is blowing trumpets and walking around a great wall. And let me tell you something, on that seventh day, they began to shout and the walls came down. You see, there's been a long time ago, we were soul winners. We were on fire. We were ready to go. We had all these things that we were going to go out and we were going to accomplish for the kingdom of God, but we began to get to a wall, and now all we're doing is walking up and down a wall. Just walking around. Walking in circles. I don't know what the wall is that stands before you. But I think it's about time that God begin to give us our shout. To begin to shout with a voice of triumph. With a victorious shout. You see, the enemy's been telling us for a long time that you don't have the money to give to the way God wants you to give. You're not good enough to do what God's called you to do. You're not smart enough to do these things. You can't do these. You are inadequate to do these things. So Satan begins to keep telling you that, but what Satan doesn't realize, there is a seventh time of a seventh day coming. That God is beginning to start raising up His people, and we're going to begin to shout, and the walls of the things that God stopped us between us and what the things that God has called us to do is going to come down. See, it's time we shout unto God with a voice of triumph. God never calls someone to something that you can't fulfill. I mean, God will not call you into something that He doesn't equip you to do. He won't call you into something and not anoint you for it. He won't call you into something and not give you the things that you need to do to fulfill it. I mean, I think about these missionaries going around the world. They sell everything they have, and which, gives them a little money for a little bit of a time, and then they go over there, and, this money runs through quickly. And I know some of them, if they allowed the enemy to get in the back of their head, they would begin to start saying, you need to go back home because you haven't got the money to do what God's called you to do. Maybe God didn't call you to Africa. Maybe God didn't call you to all these other places to do these things. But that's when God starts beginning to making a way where there is no other way. That's the thing that I love about my God is He makes a way where there is no way. When people tells me it's impossible, He says, oh yeah, watch this. Every time. Every time. I know me and Brother Tim back a few years ago when I first stepped on as a board member, we were going through some financial trouble here at the church. Brother Tim, just as calm as he could be. I love Brother Tim. Just as calm as he could be, he looked at me and he said, I've been here through the times when we had all the money we could have and the times that we had nothing. But God never let us down. God never let us down. Me and Shelly kind of have this little joke going up here on Sundays because we get so nervous when we begin to start doing worship because both of us feel like that we don't have a clue what we're doing up here leading worship. And it's kind of been our little thing to look at each other and say, has God ever let you down? No. Has God ever let you down? No. And every time God shows up. Every time He shows up. Some of us think just because that we've ran from our calling that it's too late for us now. But once again, God has never called you to sit on a pew. If you don't know what your calling is in life, let me tell you, your job is to win the lost at all cost. That's been my motto for 20 years. Win the cost at all lost. Win the lost at all cost. Win the cost at all lost. Yeah. That's right. That's what I said. Yeah. But you're supposed to be who God called you to be. Cameron, if you would come on up here. I told you guys I wasn't going to be real long tonight.